you're healthy, strong.
I'm pretty healthy.
You been working out? Taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I worked out. There was a week I did not work out because I could have worked out. I could have woken up earlier, but I'm like.
Of course, you can always wake up earlier.
I know.
3 a.m.
3 a.m. grind time.
Bro, absolutely.
David Goggins.
Bro, rise and grind.
Dude, I don't know what it is. My body just cannot function, but 8 hours of sleep is like so necessary for my body.
Dude, I'm the same way. I can swing. Do you know that guy?
Yo.
That's so funny. Maybe they just saw we were recording. Thought it was funny.
Did you say something?
I thought they yelled. I don't think there's anyone. There's no one here.
So I holler back. Yo, what you looking at?
That's funny. But yeah, no, I'm very much on a similar wave. If I don't get enough sleep, bro, it doesn't end well for me. Like it's just it's a dicey scene. My brain stops putting things together, and bro, it's bad. So I often find that's when I'm just mentally the weakest, and I end up living out things that I never want to. Is just kind of the simplest, broadest way of expressing it. So
that's like treating, of course, in the context of I believe it's Corinthians where Paul is talking about like your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Of course, he's referring to sexual immorality and lust in that nature, but of course it can still translate to just taking care of your body in any way.
Yeah.
So
like with anything.
Exactly. So like sleeping and making my flesh exhausted is going to make me more irritable, less patient. Mind fog will be extremely apparent, and you're just not going to be producing at that top notch. And you remember not T.J. Watt, his older brother, J.J. Watt. That's crazy. You know J.J. Watt, he was like, you were probably in high school. That was his prime. Anyway, a very Hall of Fame defensive player for the Texans. Yeah, he said when he started, now 10 hours is a lot, but when he started sleeping 10 hours at a night, he's like, dude, like I see things like crazy now. Like I see equations when a player's coming out. I'm like, what? But he's just saying his brain was like,
I don't know if he's just on sleep, bro. He might be on something else. That's wild. Not the equations.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
He's calculating.
He's just calculating everything.
That's nuts. That's cool though. So guys, this is Justin. He's a cool guy. I know him. I met him at church, but I felt like we always have good conversations. I feel like the first time we met, or we didn't realize that you knew my little brother, right? But we had talked for probably an hour before we realized that, and it was just like a New Year's Eve service.
It was
after church, and I was like, dang, it's like 1 a.m. I think it might be time to go home. But it was a good conversation. But thanks for coming on and being a part of it together.
Absolutely. And that's it was funny. The New Year's before, that was my first time going to Redeemer on New Year's. How long have they been doing that for, by the way?
For as long as I can remember.
Okay, so it's been a consistent thing. See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I've been going to Church of the Redeemer since I was like 4. And I didn't know that. But like the year before, that New Year's, I can't remember exactly, but I was probably up till 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, like, goofing around. But I don't think it's a coincidence the first time I went there. I had seen you before. I think we had introduced ourselves,
probably.
Like maybe just like here and there. But boom, we had the conversation there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that planted a seed of a relationship and a friendship.
Yeah.
Has definitely helped me a lot in my walk with God.
Dude, that's awesome. And it's a blessing. It's cool to have just as you kind of it's cool to see how God brings different people into your world. And that's something I'm always grateful for, because I'm always like, oh man, why did God bring this person? What is it for, and how does it play out and stuff like that? I always think, or what value, and this is an interesting thing, and I wonder, because you work in a very like the kind of business that you're in is very much like, hey, if I don't add value to you, which is really any business, but even more so, if I don't add value to you, like there's no reason for me being here, right? Which is a real thing. And I think that a lot of times, like, there's a lot of relationships that when you approach them that way, they just go so much better. It's like, what value could I add? How could I help? What can I give to you, and stuff like that. And so I just think that's an interesting thing. But there's 2 primary questions. I don't know if you know this, but Together does actually have like a structure.
Okay.
It's very loose.
No, let's just freestyle.
But the 2 questions and what we kind of started with was like, hey, what are you learning / what are you trying to figure out? Because I don't necessarily feel like I'm qualified to do a podcast. Right? Like, why should people listen? Other than I could bring them along the journey of what I'm figuring out for myself, and maybe it will help them add value.
I like that.
So what are you learning, man? What are you trying to figure out? What can you bring into this space that you're like, this is something that I'm seeing?
That's a loaded.
Okay, that's a little extreme. It did sound pretty extreme. It sounded like
loaded potato question.
If you don't have something, get out. No.
No, I love it. The first 2 things that came to mind were, well, one, I've been learning a lot about money in my industry. I'm in life insurance and retirement. So what I've been realizing over time is that over time, you're going to find people who ask a lot of questions, as they should, right? Yeah. As they should. If you are going to serve someone in any kind of business, whether it's personal training, finances, carpet cleaning, whatever, you need to be able to answer the questions of your clients, and that's the due diligence I had been lacking first getting into the industry. I'm really putting in that now. So, like an example, I've been having appointments with a PhD in finance. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to, I'm gonna stand up at the giant and have to face his Goliath. And it's been awesome. He's been asking questions that I've been answering, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
I know the answer to this.
Exactly. And it's cool. Like I'm even teaching him things, and he is literally a master in the finance field in his industry. But of course, there's nuances and a lot. You can go down the rabbit hole of different things in that regard. So it's been cool to see the hours in the dark coming to light, because when you can provide like a center of influence, like a PhD professor at a school when it comes to finances, he now trusts you.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but it's interesting, that same aspect or structure I put towards learning the money game was also the same thing I put in towards to understanding the gospel.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was selling Jesus well before I was selling financial literacy. So like, if I can talk to someone about the most controversial person of all time, Jesus Christ, I can talk to them about money. So of course I went down the rabbit hole of learning about apologetics and why Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and why I thought my grandma, being born and raised in Iran and raised Muslim, was she right? Was my grandpa right, who was Jewish? Was my mom right, who was Christian? And so it's cool to see the translation of how me delving deep and really studying the creator of the universe will leak into and affect other areas of my life in a beneficial way.
How do you go about, like, what's your internal structure towards studying? Like when, because I feel like a lot of people hear study and they think like crack open a book, just sit there with a highlighter, the one lamp, and then I'm gonna copy the textbook. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or is it more of a, I was just so curious that the knowledge just stuck, right? Or is it like what does studying look like for you, and how did you make it something that you were just like, I want to do this? Or is it something that you're like, I never wanted to do it, I just did it?
Yeah. I think the most common for me is when I get punched in the face. Okay. and that's figuratively. That's figuratively. Meaning I can be in the field, let's say I'm on an appointment or in a conversation, and someone asks me a question I didn't do my due diligence to study on. And I'm like, man, why don't I know that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that kind of puts the, okay, if I'm going to sit here and claim to be this expert, I need to know my stuff. And so it's kind of a cause and effect or a reactionary thing for me to go and now, okay, I need to go put work in. Is that the best strategy? Probably not, right? You don't want to touch the burner and burn yourself before you change. Yeah. But in this aspect, when it comes to finances, that's what it's been for me. But that time, if I touched the burner, if I couldn't answer a question, it only takes like one where I'm like, okay, I got to lock in. And I'm a night owl. So of course I try to get to bed at a good hour, but if I'm
ever just talking about sleep,
right? Oh my gosh.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh. Like I'd rather sit there at midnight, pulling up a YouTube video, taking notes, and it's having light bulbs just click off my head. Oh my gosh.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
versus it being like I'm gonna get up at, because I'm the opposite. I actually I will stay up late out of like I'd want to get it done before the day's done. But if I'm at my best, like today was one of those days where like I get up early and then I knock out a bunch of work. Right, because my brain, like, I remember being younger, being little, and like realizing this, that like I would wake up, I was probably like 14, 15. I'd wake up and be like, bro, your brain is going so fast. You need to figure out a way of reeling this back in so you can actually be productive. Like that's literally one of the, like, maybe it wasn't phrased that way, but that was the thought I was having as like a 15-year-old kid. Like, bro, you need to relax. Like, your brain's popping off, man. Like,
you gotta chill, bro.
You need to bring this back. And so just because the morning is just when I'm souped up, right? Yeah. Mentally. So but it's interesting because like my little brother, Caleb, is like not that way. Bro, the morning his on ramp is like 2 hours. Like he's like nothing, and then he's like alive at night. So yeah, it just cracks me up. But when he's actually, I don't even know if he's a night person. He's just he's a sleeper. Yeah, like, he's always asleep.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you're putting on, when I first met him to now, he's probably put on like at least 20 pounds of muscle. Oh, yeah. So maybe the more muscle mass he's getting, the more slumber he needs to be able to.
I remember, and he wasn't jacked.
Yeah.
And he was still sleeping. Right?
Okay.
And he was a sleepwalker too.
Oh my gosh.
He used to like crazy, man.
Just comes and starts shadowboxing you.
Like he jumped. We told this story in another episode, but he jumped out of his bed one time on the top bunk, asleep, and landed on his feet, like fine, like stares right at me because I'm awake doing homework, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
with his eyes closed?
No, his eyes were wide open, looking right at me. He's like, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is.
And he has no recollection.
I'm on no. Oh my god. I'm like, Caleb, wake up, and he like climbs back up into bed, goes to sleep. But like, yeah, dude, he used to sleepwalk a lot. So.
Oh my gosh, that's
next level.
Yeah, that's some like I was gonna say Keanu Reeves. What's the what movie does he's the actor in?
John Wick.
John Wick. That's like John Wick just sleepwalking.
Like in his sleep.
Exactly. That's crazy.
Bro, no, he's and you know Caleb, he's an athlete, man. So, yeah. I mean, he's just built that way.
Shout out to Caleb.
Dude, yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait to start the series because we're going to do another together. So there's like series within Together. There's Grow Together, which like the one that you and I did with Anthony is going to end in that space. Okay. There's the one with Fran and I called Safe Together. Okay. Right? And then this one's just a general Together episode. But then I want to do one with my family called More Together. MOUR.
MOUR, like you
said. Yeah, More Together.
That's awesome.
So I feel like that's cool.
That's awesome.
I love that. What's something that you're trying to figure out right now? Something that you're like, man, I don't know. And this is a question that I'm just kind of pondering, throwing around.
The first thing that sticks out is timing in a relationship.
Interesting.
So, I'm in a relationship right now.
So, like a romantic relationship.
A romantic relationship.
Okay. No bromance.
Well, I got my bromance. No, come on, don't worry. But of course, when it comes to like Christian dating and courting and just looking for your spouse, you're not looking to date. You're looking to find your wife.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as much as you can analyze the Bible, and there's still a lot of wisdom in there about it. That dating or quote unquote courting aspect is not extremely black and white. So when it comes to, of course, I'm 23. Yeah. I've lived my life in the church, but not really in Christ.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, this is the first go-round, and hopefully it's the last, of Christian dating. And timing can just be an interesting thing. And as time goes on, I'm like, oh, I have this date. I want to be married by this age. Living in this house, this, that, and the other. Where as time goes on, I've been slowly figuring out that as long as I put my due diligence and I work to serve others, to serve my significant other, that in the right time, if it's in God's will, He will make a way versus me making the way. But I'm sure, of course, you've been through that. You're currently married now with a lovely baby baking in the oven right now.
Bro. That girl's crazy. Magnolia, bro. The other day we were in urgent care because Fran had the flu, and bro, the nurse saw Magnolia like moving. Fran was laying down, and Magnolia's literally like like moving like her body by like inches, right?
Oh my
like
gosh.
up and down and stuff. And the nurse turns to me, she's like, "Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty normal
Right?
for us." She's like, "What? This is incredible!" Right? Like,
That's awesome.
had the best reaction ever.
That's awesome.
But no, I think that's real. What have you been learning kind of about that element of like service in a relationship? Because I feel like that's it's a big piece.
And it's crazy, and again, I haven't taken a look at every single aspect of sin or falling short, but a lot of it stems from pride, because that's where sin came from.
Yeah,
the sin before the fall of Satan and his fallen angels was pride.
Yeah,
he didn't want to humble himself and serve. So I feel like when it comes to the hardest part of the biggest revelation when it comes to serving someone else, especially romantically, you need to drop pride, because naturally with our sin in our flesh, we want to worship ourselves, right? And me versus you, versus in a romantic relationship, we're quote unquote saying we love someone. Where do we find love? Where does that definition of love come from? I thought I knew what it was before. I thought it was going on dates and smooching and doing all this stuff, right? And then you realize that, wait, God is love. But what specifically? And Jesus said in the Gospels, for there's no greater love than for one to lay down his life for a friend.
Yeah.
And so I've realized that the more I take the heart posture that Jesus reflected going to the cross, for me, even though he didn't have to do that for me, I didn't deserve it, that's a kind of love that I need to have for my romantic other, and love her sacrificially.
Yeah.
Without expectation or return. And I know if I serve with that heart posture, and that other person is doing the same, God's gonna ordain and bless that relationship.
He works it all out. I think it's been for me, one of the biggest shifts that I had when I was in the process of getting married was kind of one, just thinking about, okay, what's the role of a husband? And I think what Paul says is tough. He says, hey, husbands, love your wives the way that Christ loved the church, right? And he died. So it's kind of like, all right, well, and then we kind of understand that we're meant to lead, right? And so it's like, okay, how do you manage this tension between like loving and leading, and what does that really look like? And I just kind of realized that, man, like you do that through service, and that whatever you offer to your wife, or what men do is they offer a seed and women multiply it. Right. And you can see this in like kind of trivial ways, right? Where you're like, hey, like if I gave a woman a home or a house, a lot of times it becomes a home. You give a woman a bunch of ingredients, a lot of times they can cook, right? Not everyone. You do it biologically, right? You offer a woman a seed and you end up with a baby.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy
right?
stuff.
But like, how much more does that play out in the soul space? Where it's like, hey, whatever I offer to you through service, whether through attitude, through action, through whatever it is, whatever I'm offering is actually dropping into her heart and being germinated, cultivated, and reproduced. And so if I'm getting something in my relationship that isn't really ideal or not what I want or isn't healthy, my job as actually the husband or the head of the household is, okay, in what way am I not serving her correctly? Right? And there's obviously a certain level of like, anyone can choose their own path, and the person could really go kind of like AWOL or wild. But like, I think in a generally healthy relationship, right, like the guy needs to take this massive level of ownership in the form of humility and service, where it's like, I'm going to choose to serve you. And I realize and I recognize that if there's something that's missing, it's because I probably didn't offer it first. Right? And now it always comes back to, okay, Joe, like, what is it that you need to humble yourself in? How do you need to serve? How do you need to offer? And bring that up and offer it then. Because like, you have no one really to look at except for yourself, because she's just multiplying what you're offering to her.
Absolutely. Dang, that's good. It's a revelation and a
Dude,
half.
It literally like it's framed like my entire marriage. Wow. To think about it that way. Because I'm like, oh, you're reproducing what I'm offering to you. So if I'm upset about what I'm getting, I have no one to look at but me.
But you, wow.
Right? And obviously there's certain conversations, but if you really dig in, it's like, okay, but I don't do that. Okay, but, right? And so that high level of ownership really brings a lot of freedom, because ownership's a double-edged sword. It's like you almost would rather play the victim because then you're not in control, but then you want control because you're like, I want to live my life the way I want. It's like, yeah, you actually get to live your life completely how you want, and you get the consequences that come with that, good or bad. And so it's like, freedom's a weird thing, bro. And God's fighting for our freedom.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Wow.
So, but yeah, man.
That was awesome. That was a good word right there.
Hey, I hope it encourages people. But I think that actually plays out a lot of times in a lot of other relationships too. I think that like the best form of leadership is service, right? And so if you're trying to lead somebody, anyone, older sibling, if you're trying to lead up to someone who's above you, whatever it is, it looks like service, which I think is really a big deal.
Yeah. That's when you were saying that, there's been times where, like me as whether it's a leader in business or a leader in a relationship or whatnot, sometimes being the leader, you can get caught up in the pride of, I'm the guy. Like I'm the guy at face value, the front of the board, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where you're so used to pouring in and leading, when someone gives you constructive criticism, the natural flesh is like, oh wait, let me justify myself as to why what you just corrected me for, I'm actually in the right about.
Yeah.
Where in reality, it's like, hold on, take a step back. Wait, they're saying that for a reason.
Yeah.
They're not saying it maliciously. They're just giving honest, constructive criticism.
Maybe they're onto something.
Exactly. It's like, maybe I should listen versus thinking that I'm right about everything.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And it sounds like elementary the way I'm like explaining it out, but whether it's myself or a lot of people, I know a lot of people struggle with that when it comes to the humility of hearing wisdom. Because, I mean, God speaks through you through his word, but also his children.
People around you, yeah. Or, I mean, I think about it, you can learn anything almost in any environment if you're willing to, right? There's always a principle. There's always a principle to be had. You could be in a daycare and learn about it from these little kids, right?
Yeah.
And so it's pretty nuts. I think that's something that I'm learning right now is kind of having these heart checks of like pride, because I feel like I'm in a spot where right now in particular, I'm not being asked to no one's asking me to learn. No one's asking me to serve necessarily. Like they are, but there's a lot of people that are on my team that I'm leading. And so like, why did they join the team? Hopefully they joined the team because they saw somebody that was willing to invest and serve them. But I just noticed that there's a lot of people that are coming to me asking like, hey Joe, can you help me with this? Can you explain this? Or bringing questions or bringing whatever. And I was just had this moment where I was like, dude, like you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, man. Like you're starting to think you're the guy. You need to relax. You know what I mean? And it's kind of this sobering reminder of like, and I wrestle with this tension of like, no, Joe, you have value to add. Of course you do, right? But you are not the value that you add, right? And that kind of tension of like your worth isn't the value that you can add. It's actually infinite. And so now you need to take what you have and use it to offer it back to others, because your value is never tied to what you could give them. It was already on its own, a separate thing, a separate entity.
I like that.
So it's kind of I know it feels a little backwards or a little kind of jumbled, and I'm sure I'm going to keep thinking about this because I'm in real time really trying to process this. I was on the phone with one of my a good friend, and he was just kind of, we were talking about this dynamic, and at the end we prayed for each other, and I said, hey, can you pray for me to have, like, with humility and stuff like that? And we jumped in, and it was just really, really cool because I'm like, no, like, I don't want to become bigger than life in my own mind. You know what I mean? I want to try to keep living in service. So, but yeah, it's an interesting thing I'm trying to figure out.
Some I don't know if you've ever heard. You probably have. When you do something physically, it can seep deeper into your soul. I'm trying to give like an analogy.
Like after service, going up and asking for prayer.
Yes, like exactly, like something like that.
Yeah, or like getting on your knees or like whatever, lifting your hands during worship.
Lifting your hands during worship, the physical act of lifting and choosing to show an act of worship or surrender, can help your heart posture actually open up more to drop that pride and allow yourself to humble yourself to do that. If something ever amazing happens, whether it's helping a brother and sister in Christ out with like something that was like really serious, and dang, God, you trusted them to come to me, and they got healing, not from me but through Christ in me. That's awesome, right? Or maybe you have a good month in business, or something just goes very well that can very easily, that the enemy in your flesh can very easily twist to give you glory. I will physically get on my knees, put my face on the floor, and be like, thank you, Jesus. I'm nothing without you.
Yeah.
Having and some people may think it's extreme, but it's biblical. When to dust, I was like formed into dust I will return, in Ecclesiastes. I am nothing without my Creator.
Yeah.
I'm nothing without Him. Now with Him, I am a child of God, and I'm esteemed highly by the ultimate form of love and the Creator of the universe, which is an awesome thing. But reminding myself, even physically, on the floor, on my knees, saying, Lord, you're giving me this platform and a pedestal because you trust me, Lord. Continue to trust me. Continue to keep my heart humble and my heart posture in an act of service versus self-righteousness. And even that physical act of me getting on my knees in my room alone, whether it's at church, lifting my hands in worship, anything where it's like, hey, this isn't me. This isn't for my glory. It's for your glory. So that's definitely helped me a lot when it comes to that. Just to that physical leads to the mental and spiritual, because you're physically acting it out of, hey, I'm in total surrender and bowing down to the King.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think I need to practice that more, because it is a very like sobering thing. It's like your physical body is like a gate to your soul, and how you actually posture your body tells yourself a lot. I remember hearing someone say like, you are actually informing you of who you are, right? And so like the decisions that you actually make inform your soul about who you are. And so if you're somebody who's always out partying, doing whatever, it's like, oh yeah, I actually don't value maybe my physical body as much because I'm willing to hurt it. Right. Whatever it may be. Or maybe it's like, no, I'm gonna physically do this posture that's humbling. It's like, because I am a humble, and you're informing your soul. You're like, no, this is who you are. Like you don't think of yourself as more than whatever. So I love that. I think it's really, really true. So that's awesome. Let me double check this time, man. I think we're just about there. So,
awesome,
Justin. There's any other thoughts that you wanted to, any bars you wanted to spit? For the people on together.
Any bars I want to spit?
I'm like it's we need I love this. One of my favorite podcasts is it's called Leadership Leanin', right?
Leadership Leanin'
with Chad Veach. They're great, and they always kind of like troll about themselves. They're like, I mean, we're a small nation, like all the leaners together. Now we are very small. There's literally one person that watches every video. Her name's Whitney. She's the best.
Okay.
She watches. I like work with her. She's like the only person that's watching all of them.
Okay.
Right.
I know Whitney. Yeah.
Yeah. She literally like I posted one today at midnight, and she's like talk about a night owl. She's up to like 2 a.m.
Okay.
And she like probably watched it during her, and she like leaves a comment every single time. Love you, Whit. You're a real one.
Let's go.
But I'm like, yeah, dude, the together community, because we're together. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. I was just saying last the Holy Spirit, I believe, has put this in my mind. If God had to sacrifice His own Son in order to save humanity and fulfill the mission, expect that your life is going to require sacrifice in order to be the man or woman that God has called you to be. I feel like a lot of non-Christians and Christians both together, especially Christians, think because I'm walking with God, that means that I am not going to have to suffer or lose something in order to gain something that God wants for me. And don't get it twisted. with financially, for what is it, profit a man to gain the whole world yet lose his own soul. But when it comes to just growth, whether it's starting a ministry or starting a business or entering into a new career path or entering a relationship, is going to require sacrifice. And if it doesn't, it's probably not worth it.
It's true.
So just know if there's something that's painful, that is requiring more of you, just think about it like the gym. There's two types of stress. There's distress, which is bad stress, and then there's eustress, which is good stress.
Hey,
so
down.
You're right. So it's like when you get in that gym and you're pumping that iron, and you're getting that pump. It's like, man, it hurts, but it's a good hurt, because it's breaking down those muscle fibers so they can grow back stronger. And so don't be afraid of sacrifice. Take it on, because I would argue that Jesus taking that sacrifice for us was probably the best thing that could ever happen to humanity. So if he did it, I think we should do it, and we'll be very well off for it.
I love it.
So yeah.
Well, hey man, thanks for joining me on a playground.
Yes, sir.
So my wife has the flu.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go inside and bring you into our house, but I appreciate you.
I appreciate it, of course.
It's fun.
Yes, sir.
We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Bro.
Part 2 on maybe a different playground.
Maybe we can go back to the couch.
Yeah, it's probably more comfortable. Awesome. Peace. That was awesome.